The Dunwich Legacy Campaign Expansion contains an 8-scenario campaign suitable for any investigators and introduces no new rules or tokens. The Dunwich Legacy was the first ever expansion released for the card game and designed at the same time as the core set. It was originally released as a thin cardboard box called the Deluxe Expansion and 6 additional items called Mythos Packs that were released monthly. This is called a cycle. The player cards and scenarios were mixed together across all of these products. 6 years later, the whole cycle was re-released, but this time split into 2 boxes, with this one containing the new investigators and player cards, and this one containing the whole campaign. So when you are shopping around, make sure you know the difference between the 2 release models. Double check the FFG product numbers just to make sure, particularly if you find a price that seems really cheap or you are buying second hand. This campaign is similar to the one found in the core box, but it is 8 chapters long rather than 3. You don't need a copy of the Dunwich Investigators or any of its player cards. You can play with the investigators and cards found just in the core box, or any other expansion. And it is recommended you start with fresh investigators and new level 0 decks rather than trying to carry over the characters you played in a previous game. You will need to use many of the encounter sets found in the core set, not to mention the Chaos Bag and all the tokens, so you can't just purchase a pre-constructed starter in this box and get busy. The scenarios all follow the same format as the core box, with act and agenda cards, locations, an encounter deck you draw from, and so on, making this the ideal progression for someone who has only ever played the core set. Don't forget, we already have setup videos for all the scenarios in this campaign in our Dunwich playlist to help you out as much as possible. Whilst there are no new mechanics or tokens specifically introduced for this campaign, it will use keywords from the rules reference that you may not have seen before. The story progresses from one scenario to the next in a linear fashion, with the exception of the first 2 scenarios which you can play in any order, thus increasing the replayability. The box is the same size as the revised core set, so it will fit neatly onto your shelf, and it is made from the same rigid card. On the back, it hints that you needn't purchase this if you bought everything the first time round. Like that is going to stop you. You know you want this. The recommended sleeve count is 7 packs of 50 standard sized card sleeves, although you only get 307 cards in here, so you may have some left over from protecting your core box, and can get away with 6. Or use a manufacturer that puts more than 50 in a pack. Just saying. Let's open it up and have a look inside. But before we do, we tape the shrink wrap to the lids of our boxes, as it helps keep them looking pristine, plus we find ourselves having more accidental spills than most people. The first thing you will see is the new campaign guide. Compared to the one in the deluxe expansion, it is taller, thicker and spiral bound, not stapled. This allows it to lay flat on your table, although it does mean it takes up plenty of space, so you may want to fold it all the way over like so. It is a mere 26 pages and feels very light and flimsy when compared to the Edge of the Earth booklet. This is because you are in the golden age of the card game, before the designers went crazy and decided players wanted more sitting around reading and less actual gameplay. Despite the huge size, the text remains as tiny as ever, although there is at least good contrast. It has a table of contents at the front, which is great for allowing you to zip right to the scenario you are playing, and on the rear is a weird reference table of useful instructions, which presumably you just read when setting up that scenario. Surely putting in the Dunwich sections of the FAQ would have been more helpful, but never mind. Tell them about the setup videos! Already done that. Also on the back page is the complete list of encounter sets in words and pictures, including the ones you need from the core box, helpfully in alphabetical order. A lovely part of each campaign, particularly for the players that like to peek behind the curtain, are the designer's notes, and it is odd to get them before you play the campaign, so don't read these until after you've completed it. In the setup instructions of scenarios 3 to 8 are these little guidelines for playing that chapter as a standalone adventure. Mostly this is a holdover from when the scenarios were sold separately in Mythos packs, and that tiny fragment may have been all you could find of that cycle. There is a campaign log on the 2 penultimate pages. You can photocopy this or actually download the digital version for free from the FFG website. In fact, you can download the whole campaign guide as a PDF from the same page, if you find this more convenient. Great for making that tiny text bigger. Moving on, the highlight of any Asmodee product is the full-colour double-sided advert, which you may have seen in your revised core set. Check out our videos about Unfathomable if you are curious. Or Wrath of Nakai. There are 9 individually wrapped packs of cards, one for each of the scenarios and one for the encounter sets, which are used in multiple scenarios. So it isn't quite plug and play. What is nice is that each scenario is in order, front to back, left to right, so you can open one pack at a time and don't risk things getting jumbled up before you even start. Errata-wise, there were a couple of cards that needed minor changes as detailed in the FAQ, and it looks like all of those have been corrected. There is also an extra paragraph that needs to be inserted into the campaign log. But, as hard as we looked, we don't think this has been done, so make sure you download the latest FAQ before playing. There is a plastic insert which is the same design as the one from the revised starter box, and it looks to be standard for all these large box releases. This is more designed to keep things in place during transport rather than be useful for storage, but you could keep your player decks or chaos tokens in here while you are playing through the campaign. If you do own the Return to Dunwich Legacy and you have the encounter set dividers, you will see these fit in nicely. They are a close fit width-wise, so don't rattle around too much, and their rounded corners aren't troubled by the rounded edges of the troughs, which are a byproduct of the vacuum forming process used in manufacture. It's all good, except if you wanted to put your campaign guide back on top, then it will bend them like Beckham. We may not even be comfortable putting the lid back on. Just like the edge of the earth, there is way too much space in this box for just the campaign. Even if you double or triple sleeve your cards and stick in all the encounter sets from the core box, you won't use half of this storage. And if you don't sleeve your cards at all, look how much fresh air you can store. If you want to know more about the lore, the Dunwich Legacy Campaign acts as a sequel to H.P. Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, published in the April 1929 issue of Weird Tales magazine. As it is mostly out of copyright, you can find the text for free on many legitimate sites, or as an audiobook reading on YouTube. It is only 17,500 words and could take you less than 2 hours to read. It gives you more details about Professor Armitage, the Miskatonic University, the Necronomicon, and Yog-Sothoth. Personally, we love the Dark Adventure Radio Theatre recordings from the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, which are full cast recordings with music and sound effects presented like a period radio play, which are available on CD or digital download. These are a painless and fun introduction if reading isn't your thing. Although, if reading isn't your thing, then why are you playing this wordy game? So, that's pretty much all we can think of at the moment. Leave a comment below if you have any questions.